Welcome back, everybody. So today we are going to talk a little bit about sort of the future of special forces, really the military in general, and what that is going to look like with Gen Z sort of moving into positions to take over, the war fighting from the previous generations. Okay, what is that going to look like? Are they going to be successful? All those sorts of things. Okay, so as we move out of the global war on terror, having fought that war for the last 20 years, Generation X, millennial generation. We are sort of on our way out, right? So most guys of my generation are either already retired or quickly getting to that point, okay? So the vast majority of the guys like me who fought the war for the last 20 years are either already out or quickly headed that way, okay? So that means that the next big war, if it happens 5-10 years from now, is not going to have all this combat experience from our generations, okay? And with us being in peacetime for an extended period of time, what that means is we could potentially find ourselves in a full-scale blown-out war with a fighting force that has zero experience, okay? So let's talk a little bit about it. And Gen Z, really in a nutshell, right? Because they're the next in the hopper for sort of being that fighting force generation. Okay, so it's no secret that this generation, Gen Z, is by far the weakest, softest, most coddled generation in human history. Okay, we've never seen anything like it. Okay. Right out the gate, looking at that and then comparing to what it takes to become a Green Beret or what the job entails in Special Forces, those two things do not work well together, okay? Now, if you're a millennial or you Gen Z, before you start cheering rah, yeah, Gen Z sucks, the reality is it's not their fault that they're so soft and weak, okay? It is Gen X and the millennial generation's fault for raising that generation, okay? We built the constructs of that culture in our society, and this is the result of what we did, okay? So don't put all the blame on their generation, right? This is sort of the world they've grown up in. But again, is that conducive to special forces or the military, any of that in general? Absolutely not. There's no place for it, okay? There's no place for safe spaces and, words are violence and participation trophies and toxic masculinity is bad. This is a hyper masculine field of work, okay? And with that, there's no such thing as toxic masculinity, okay? Masculinity is a scale from masculine to feminine. Being very masculine, if you want to call that toxic, that's fine. I would argue the biggest problem with Gen Z is the lack of masculinity in society in general, okay? So that's my personal opinion. A big part of why this generation is so soft is we've sort of decided that we don't need men anymore. And you can take a look around in society and see where that's getting us, all right? Now, what have I seen myself, right, coming through and coming out of the course? I retired less than a year ago. And so we had, quite a few new guys coming out of the course that are from the Gen Z demographic. And these are guys who passed the Special Forces qualification course, the top end of performers of this entire generation. And overall, there's some good dudes out there, but there's some stark differences between the new guys coming in and our previous generations. The biggest one is really sort of, I would say, their ability to take criticism. Typically when I was raised as a new guy, nobody gave a shit about your feelings. If you didn't perform, you just most likely just got kicked off the team, right? It's just a high performance organization. There's no room for anything like that. If you couldn't take the criticism, then you were on your way out, right? What we've had to do is, we can't be too hard on these guys, because rather than having inner resilience to take it and then move forward and perform better, they just completely shut down and they become worthless, right? So we've Not that it's necessarily it's a bad thing that sort of we're changing, but it's a really sort of kind of becoming a coddled sort of coaching mentorship approach, right? Can't yell at anybody. Not that that's necessarily a good thing from leadership, but in the space of war fighting, right? You have to be mentally tough, right? Like if you shut down over someone screaming at you, just fucking wait until the bullets and the explosions start flying past your face, right? It's you're gonna find out real quick that words aren't actually violence, right? There's real violence in the world. So now, there also still has been some guys who are just absolute freak show, high performing studs, which not as many, unfortunately, but they're still out there, right? So it does give me some hope that there still is a group of these young men in Gen Z who want to sort of embody what a special forces soldier is, right? They want to be successful. They want to work hard. All the things that it takes, be disciplined, be mentally tough, and find success that way. There are still some in the generation, but the generation as a whole, it's rough from a warfighting perspective, right? If you think it's good for us to have a society of just soft, nurtured men, okay, that's fine. That's your opinion. But on the battlefield, that's not going to do us fucking any good. It's just not, okay? With that, special forces is not a place for any sort of weakness. There's no safe spaces in special forces. There's, nobody cares about your feelings, okay? All those things society tells you are important along those lines is not a thing in the organization, right? So people are going to expect extremely high-performing individuals, and if you're not that, you're not going to do well, okay? Now, we can take a look around. Special forces in general and the military overall is in a recruitment crisis, okay? This generation does not want to sign up for the military. They don't want to volunteer for special forces, comparatively to the previous generations. And why is that, right? So it's too easy for us to just say, well, it's because their generation is soft and weak. Well, no, their generation is also looking at what our country just did for the last 20 years with the global war and terror, looking at the military, looking at all the PTSD and the trauma and all the war and combat and all this shit that we went through, right? And then watching this administration that just happened just shit all over the military and throw it all away. Things like the withdrawal of Afghanistan, right? Obviously doesn't give a shit about our veterans, about our military, and they made it very, very clear. So if you're a young 18, 19-year-old kid, you're looking at this saying, well, why would I potentially want to go to war and have the outcome be what this generation just dealt with, right? They can't get any help from the VA, right? Mental health crisis is out of control. Veterans commit suicide at a rate far higher than any other demographic. It's not surprising that they look at that and go, no thanks, not for me, especially when Bernie Sanders is offering to give me free school, right? Which is not going to happen, but the lie is being sold to them in that way. So it's a two-pronged problem, right? You have a generation that really overall is not designed for this type of job. And then at the same time, we've done such a shitty job of taking care of our service members and our veterans that, why would anybody want to join? I get it, okay? I still think for, young people and really young men, more so than anything, is the military is still by far the best decision an 18-year-old kid can make, okay? Even if you only do 3 years, you get out, you have the GI Bill, free college, you got a VA home loan to be able to buy a home, which your peers are never going to be able to do. You're not going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt, or you make a career out of it. And there's so much opportunity for success in life in the military. It's really like the cheat code easy button if you're a young man or woman. But I digress, right? We aren't doing a good job of relaying that to the next generation, okay? So the reality is, right now everybody thinks, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter, okay? Because we're currently not at full-scale war. But I can promise you, this is America, we will go back to being in some massive major conflict, probably in the next 5 to 10 years, okay? And when that happens, my generation's all going to be gone. All of the combat experience, all the knowledge, all the expertise is going to be gone. And it's going to fall solely on the shoulders of a military that's whole focus has been DEI and a woke agenda and not training, not becoming lethal, and having a special operations community that's sort of falling apart at the seams because it can't get anybody to join. Okay, that is not going to be good for America when we enter the next conflict. Okay, so we either need to figure it out and change course very, very quickly in this country as a society, or Generation Alpha is going to basically have to pick up the pieces probably 20 years from now, as this country is probably collapsed. Okay, so it's my hope that this generation, next generation, Gen Z, finds some stoicism and a backbone and actually goes forward, and we get another new generation of amazing special operations and military warfighters in general. From what I've seen, I don't have any hope that that's going to be the case. But again, like I said, there's still a lot of, young aspiring soldiers that, reach out to me all the time that do give me hope that potentially maybe this next generation will find its way. But we probably shouldn't hold our breath. All right, guys, take care.